Father Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten and anointed Son Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, who is our strength and our Redeemer and our light and our salvation. With that, Mashiach, Kabuadim Lahasikwanium, Shal Vocab, which means double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone, the true shepherds of Israel, pushing the sound doctrine of faith, truth, and sincerity, and shalom, honors and salutations to Bayash Shalabada, which is the 144,000 elect governing body of the house of David, along with the rest of the 1/3 elect men, women, and children of Israel. All right, and it's your fellow servant Malak Rayab. Just back at it again with another biblical lesson through the spirit of edification, exhortation, honor, and ratazah within this video, along with the spirit of prophecy, being a testimony of our Lord and Savior, Hamashiach Yahushai, who the Master of the world eagerly refers to Jesus Christ. And it's a response to the debate / discussion between Vocab Malone, all right, aka Inspector Gadget, all right, aka Agent Riser, all right, the modern day John Calvin, okay, according to comparisons between him and the ancient, the photos of John Calvin. But yeah, just a response between Vocab and the brother from Northern Kingdom Prophets over these so-called indigenous peoples being Israelites or not, through biblical prophecy, and the scripture that Vocab tried to use to contend with the fact that the so-called indigenous peoples are the Northern Kingdom of Israel. All right, as a further contention against the scripture the brother used in Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 49 on how the Edomites were to sail from the eastern side of the world, which is known as the common side of the world, where all the nations once dwelt at simultaneously, over to the west. All right, and how that was already fulfilled in Habakkuk, the first chapter. All he did was just further cut himself, because the modern day Chaldeans that he referred to in Habakkuk, the first chapter, are the modern day Dukes of Edom, or in this case, the modern day Chaldeans he referenced in Habakkuk, the first chapter, are the present day Dukes of Edom. All right, the rulers of the darkness of this world, which are the central international crime banking families, man. Okay, all right. The rulers of the darkness of this world, otherwise known as the Dukes of Edom, all right, pursuant to the genealogy of the Dukes of Edom, all right, mentioned in Genesis the 36th chapter, man, and through biblical prophecy. Okay, that's going to be further substantiated within this lesson. So I just wanted to do a quick response. The reason I really put this devil's name, in the title, is for algorithm purposes. For those who may have stumbled across that video where he botched up Habakkuk the first chapter. They may be able to stumble across this video, get some out of Ratazah, be further edified and exhorted. Over the hermeneutical cross reference between the Chaldeans prophesied in Habakkuk the first chapter and the Dukes of Edom through the spirit of biblical prophecy, because this guy failed to do so purposely. Okay, to try to further deceive the very elect and keep us asleep, but it's not possible to deceive the very elect, But yeah, I still want to make this video through the spirit of edification, exhortation, all right, as an open rebuke against this character, this contender against the faith, and his failed attempt to use Habakkuk the first chapter to disprove the prophecy in Deuteronomy 20 and 49, that further substantiates the so-called indigenous people of the Northern Kingdom of Israel. All right, so I'm about to bring out some secular history, all right, and filter everything into biblical prophecy after playing this video, and Adam Ratazah is further edifying his order to the elect.
And will all come and settle in the steep ravines and the clefts of the rocks and all the thorn bushes and all the pastures. And you go through and look, this is showing you that this is fulfilled by nations in their cultural context, not by Americans, not by Europeans. Isaiah 28:11, people of strange lips, foreign tongue. These are Assyrians and Babylonians that it's ultimately talking about. Isaiah 37:18, the kings of Assyria have laid waste all the nations and their lands. Hosea 8:1, I mean, it's fulfilled by Assyria than Babylon. Jeremiah 5:15 shows that it's Babylon. Behold, I am bringing against you a nation from afar, O Israel, declares the Lord. And guess who he's talking about? He's talking about Babylon there. That's what he's talking about. Jeremiah 5:15. Lamentations 4:19 speaks about this. Ezekiel 17:3. Habakkuk 1:6-8. For behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation. And look what it says. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle swift to devour. That's probably the best passage. I should have went there first. Look at Habakkuk 1:6-8 and tell me that it's not fulfilling this passage. Do you see what it says?
Are you telling me this is a reoccurring event?
What do you mean?
Are you telling me this is reoccurring over and over again?
Is that what you're saying? Over again?
Is that what you just said? It happened in this book, it happened here, it happened here.
No.
So it's reoccurring is what you're saying.
It happened with Babylon and Assyria, principally, and these books are speaking about the event, showing you that it's not America.
And Rome, and Greek.
Okay,
Greece.
See, this is where he cut himself, because yes, it is talking about that in throughout the within the course of secular history filled to the biblical prophecy. But oftentimes, when the prophets of Israel were sent out to prophesy to Israel for their salvation and to prophesy the downfall of the heathen that were oppressing and afflicting them, oftentimes those prophecies were to be prophesied within multiple timelines. Like in the case of Nahum, the 3rd chapter, where Nahum was prophesying against the wicked Neo-Syrian Empire. All right, which was also known as a bloody nation. And when you read Nahum 3:1, now, we know that Esau Edom is a bloody man, like it says in Ezekiel 35th chapter, and which is why in Psalm chapter 55 verse 23, Scripture said that bloody, deceitful men shall not live out half their days. You see, so we understand. All right, the spirit of prophecy, man. All right, is often interpreted through our hermeneutics, okay? All right, through the lens of prophecy, okay? Often within multiple timelines, man. Just like Revelation 18 chapter, okay? The precepts. All right, so this guy is being the deceiver, and ultimately he was set up, he was set up to deceive whomever Yahweh by Shem Shah would allow him to deceive, but it's not possible to deceive the very elect. All right. Pursuing the same Matthew 24 chapter. Why? Because the names of the elect are already sealed in the book of life. Like it says in Revelation, the 7th chapter, Sirach, the 17th chapter, Revelation, the 14th chapter, and so forth. So I'm about to just further go into the hermeneutical correlation between ancient Nineveh and Babylon to modern day Nineveh and Babylon, because those are also considered spiritual aliases of America. Babylon the Great, all right, the place of oppression and affliction, okay, which will happen to be the main place of oppression and affliction amongst the nation of Israel, which is why in Isaiah 11 chapter it speaks about how we would be carried out of modern day Egypt and modern day Assyria, just like it mentions in Zechariah chapter 10 verse 10. You see, where it mentions how it correlates the north country, which is America, the Western Hemisphere, with Assyria. Okay, and how Yahweh by Shem Shah will leave Assyria desolate. That hasn't happened yet, man, because the modern day area of Assyria is within the modern day Mesopotamian area, which is the ancient Mesopotamian area, modernly situated, geographically situated between North Iraq, okay, which Iraq is otherwise known as Babylon, okay, modern day Babylon, and northeastern Syria. That's where that ancient Mesopotamian area is situated geographically, where Assyria is situated, which I'm about to further prove that. You see? So that further confirms that area is a spiritual reference to Babylon the Great. All right, it's also where the northern kingdom were prophesied to start their journey from over here to America, Babylon the Great, otherwise known as Akar Ratazah. So this guy is a deceiver, man. Okay? So I'm about to go ahead and continue.
Let's look at Habakkuk 1:6.
So it's reoccurring, right?
It happened with Babylon, it happened with Assyria, or you can flip it around to get it in chronological order. But here's what I'm saying, you're not really dealing with the things you try to put upon America. Yahweh, through the voice found in the book of Habakkuk, already put on the Chaldeans. Look at Habakkuk 1:6-8. For behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, who march through the breadth of the earth to seize dwellings not their own. They are dreaded and fearsome. Their justice and dignity go forth for themselves. Their horses are swifter than leopards, more fierce than the evening wolves. Their horsemen press proudly on. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle, swift to devour. They all come for violence, all their faces forward. This literally is showing you what Deuteronomy 28 said. It's not an accident Habakkuk is putting it in this way. He's showing the Israelites Deuteronomy 28 is being fulfilled before you. This is not about America. Why does it say eagle right here in connection with Babylon? It says...
All right. The reason why is because the eagle is a further symbol of violence and profanity. Okay, a further physical embodiment of the wickedness that is represented by Esau, Edom. Hence why it mentions the correlation between the eagle and Edom in Jeremiah 49th chapter. All right, because why? The eagle is just so happens that the eagle is an ancient Greco-Roman symbol, man, which was often depicted and displayed on the back of their currency, their pieces of currency, man. All right, including their gold and silver coins and whatnot. Okay, and which further derives back to Babylon. Okay, you see that? So that further correlates the ancient Babylonian Empire, all right, with Greece and Rome, all right, or in this case, ancient Egypt, okay, with the pagan Greco-Roman Empire in America, which, oddly enough, also so happens to have the eagle as the symbol of America. You see that? That's why the eagle is mentioned there. So he just cut himself, man. Now let's go ahead and get into some more understanding on that. Okay, let's go ahead and get Habakkuk the first chapter, since he's not going to do it, being a deceiver. Okay, this is another way to cut that. Okay, it's going to break it down. Habakkuk 1:6. For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. You see that? And let's go to get a quick precept on that. Micah chapter 2, start at verse 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And that's what Esau Edom did. He oppressed us so much so that we damn near completely forgot about the Hebrew Israelite heritage, man. Okay, which actually did happen to all of Israel, but it was prophesied that a remnant would return. Okay, pursuant to Isaiah the 10th chapter and other precepts. All right. So that's why here, Psalm chapter 49, and that's why in the book of Genesis, the 27th chapter, says how Esau Edom's blessing would be a sword along with the fatness of the land, because he was to obtain the fatness of the land by his sword. And behind every major world war event, Esau Edom is behind it, man. Going back to the Punic Wars, okay. Going back to the war within the siege of Jerusalem back in 70 AD, 70 to 73 AD, or actually going back to around 65 to 73 AD, when our last fortress of Masada fell. Okay, but it started starving Jake out. All right, by refusing supplies and goods we were relying on for our livelihood's sake. All right, to be halted from being distributed into Jerusalem. So Esau Edom's behind that. He's behind the Seminole Wars. All right, in modern day Babylon the Great, America. Okay, I was behind the first two wars and this up and coming last Wars war. You see, right? Because he was created to remove peace from the earth. Okay, being a man of sin and son of perdition, man. Okay, pursuing 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, and Revelation, 6th chapter. All right. So Habakkuk, the 1st chapter, okay, is a reference to the formidable military of Esau Edom, going back to the Roman Empire. Okay, pursuing Daniel, the 7th chapter. All right, and the little horn of this empire is America. Okay, which is why the only thing that's keeping this American economy afloat is the military prowess of the U.S. military, along with their NATO alliance. Okay, along with their wine. Okay, their foreign policy. All right, and science and technology, man, and their religion. Okay, along with their politics. You see, this is Psalm 49:11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling place to all generations. They call the lands after their own names. You see, hence America after Amerigo Vespucci, an Edomite explorer. Okay, Africa after Leo Schifri Africanus, man. Okay, Egypt was named after Ptolemy Soter. All right, it was formerly known as Montezarium. So this is a further fulfillment of the Edomites, man. Okay, so back in Habakkuk 1, I'm gonna continue in. Actually, I'm going to go back to verse 6. It says, For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. Now, let's get the meaning of the word Chaldeans. All right, and let's briefly go into some secular history on that to get an understanding on who the modern-day Chaldeans are. Because like it says in Ecclesiastes 4:16, Yahweh, by Shemai Shah, was not to do away with the nations that he created. All right? So these so-called Chaldeans still exist, and we're going to identify further identify who they are, all right, through the hermeneutical correlation between past tense and present tense through the spirit of prophecy. So this is Chaldeans here, all right. It goes into the prefix of the Chaldeans, okay, of the inhabitants of Chaldea, all right, living in the lower Euphrates and Tigris River, all right, around the lower Mesopotamian area, bordering the Persian Gulf. Now let's get a map on that real quick, all right. Let me see where it's at. I believe it's get that real quick on this reference. All right, as soon as it loads up here. All right. So let me scroll up a little bit. Okay, now this is modern day Mesopotamia. Okay, which is where the Assyrian Empire is located. Okay, of the land of Assyria. Okay, biblically known as Ashur, and that's the nation Ashur. Okay, that was ruling during the Assyrian dynasties. So now you see there that you see where it says Assyria. Okay, all right. Then you see Nineveh right next to that, because Nineveh is the capital of Assyria. You see, and that's why Nahum was prophesying against Assyria, okay, which was specifically Nineveh of Assyria, okay, around that modern day Mesopotamian area, or the ancient Mesopotamian area, man, okay, around the Euphrates River, all right, and that's why you see there Babylonia, or Babylon, which is the province of Assyria, because ancient Babylon is modern day Iraq, you see, so that's that area, okay, in which pursuant to second Ezra, the 13th chapter, where the northern kingdom were to sell from, right there in that area. Okay, further outlined in Second Kings 17:6. All right, where the Assyrians took the northern kingdom to this area. Okay, around the time of Salmanassar III invading Samaria. Okay, which is the area of the northern kingdom of Israel. All right, and around 724 BC, we had Sargon II and his son. Basically finish off the invasion of Samaria, okay, and until around the time of 721, where they weren't heard of at that point, okay. But through biblical prophecy, we understand what happened to the northern kingdom, and Vocab is not going to break that down because he's trying to keep Jake sleeping. We understand, we understand opposition is required in the spiritual war. You see, but he if he was going to pick a scripture to try to contend with the fact that so-called indigenous people are not Israelites, that was a horrible route to go. That's just further, that because he just further foretold what was to transpire in Deuteronomy 20 and 49. Okay, now with that, let's get the meaning of Chaldeans, further substantiate that real quick. All right, this is so let me get off of that real quick and then go to let me see. All right, now this is Daniel, the 2nd chapter, in the 2nd verse, and where it mentions the Chaldeans. okay, and who the Chaldeans were, which were wizards of ancient Babylonia or Babylon, the province of Assyria. Now, it says Daniel 2:2, and that's why King Nebuchadnezzar was known as the king of Babylon, because ancient Babylonia or Babylon was known as a province of Assyria. All right. So it says Daniel 2:2. It says, let's get the King James Version first. It says, then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to shew the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. Okay. So when King Nebuchadnezzar had that dream of the statue, okay, symbolic of the periodical rulership of the heathen, okay, he required for that. He required the interpretation of that dream through these magicians, all right, these wizards of Babylonia or Babylon, man, otherwise known as the Chaldeans, whom were sorcerers. You see, who were the modern day Chaldeans? Okay, regarding the meaning of the word, the dukes of Edom, all right, the rulers of the darkness of this world, who incite these demons through their enchantments, man, all right, through their wicked devices, including their propaganda, their westernized media, all right, their politics, their religion, all right, especially Hollywood, in which Hollywood goes back to the word hollowswood, which was a tool that witches used. You see that? So this is clearly who the modern day Chaldeans are. Now let's go ahead and further uncover that within a New International Version, where it says, so the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed when they came in and stood before the king. You see, so these are who the modern day Chaldeans are, and that's why they use these different entities and institutions or whatnot, all right, and organizations such as Disney, okay, on behalf of a pedophile Walt Disney, to prey on the children. That's why within YouTube, okay, owned by these Amalekites, these Dukes of Edom, okay, they have censored the algorithm, all right, to filter child content, all right, through perverseness, or including drug usage, the exposure to drug usage, drug usage lyrics, all right, through cocaine and sexual immorality. You see, that's why on YouTube, what's actually deemed inappropriate of rated A adult content on other platforms is rated E for everybody, including children. You see you see in this, and that's why that's why recently had the Southern Baptist Convention get further exposed for pedophilia and sexual immorality within these religious institutions, man. All right, because the wicked vibration of pedophilia and sexual immorality upon young, underdeveloped, barren females, okay, little girls and little boys, goes back to the vibration of pagan ritualistic fire sacrifices to Baal Molech, okay, requiring children, okay, pursuant to Deuteronomy the 12th chapter, all right, Jeremiah the 32nd chapter, and so forth. You see, and that's what further confirms to the modern day, or substantiates anyway, who the modern day Chaldeans are, man. Okay, wizards of Babylon, and Babylon means the land of confusion. America is the epitome of that. You see, so I'm gonna go ahead and we'll go back to Habakkuk 1. All right, Habakkuk 1 in just a second. Habakkuk 1, I'm going to continue with verse 7. It says, they are terrible and dreadful, their judgment and their dignity shall proceed of themselves. Their horses also are swifter than the leopards, and are more fierce than the evening wolves. And their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from far. They shall fly as the eagle that hasteth to eat. Now, let's get a quick precept on that. Jeremiah the 50th chapter. All right. Jeremiah 50, we start at verse 30, and it reads, therefore shall her young men fall in the streets, and all her men of war shall be cut off in that day, said the Lord Yahweh. All right. Now, why did it emphasize on her men of war? Because war is a specialty of Esau Edom by way of his blessing, his sword, which is why here in Daniel chapter 7, verse 7, it says this. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. All right, because the Edomites are the formidable Roman Empire, the formidable pagan Western Roman Empire, were known for their expertise in war by being one of the first nations to use iron weapons, all right, specifically iron swords in battle. Okay, and the Assyrians were also known as one of the first nations to use iron weapons. You see that? You see that hermeneutical correlation? He's talking about through the spirit of prophecy. I'm about to further go into that. But it goes on to say, it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. You see? All right. And it's just, because once again, it was able to stamp the residue with the feet of that empire of the nations. Okay, including the Medo-Persian Empire that they took down, which was the Edomites. You see, so Edom's always been known for its form of empire. So those horses, all right, are referring to his military might through his horses and his chariots, man, that they were often used in warfare. You see, quick precept in Ezekiel 35. Ezekiel 35 and start at verse 5. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, and the time of their calamity and the time that their iniquity had an end. You see, because they're a bloody nation. You see, pursuing Psalm 55 and 23, which is also why the hermeneutical correlation of Nineveh being considered a bloody nation, because the Assyrians were also known as a formidable military, which I'm about to go into, is another hermeneutical biblical cross-reference to the modern-day Assyrians, which is America. Okay? So it says in verse 6, Therefore as I live, said the Lord Yahweh, I will prepare thee to blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it, from it him that passeth out, and him that returneth. All right, now let's go ahead and get this information here real quick. All right, dealing with the hermeneutical biblical correlation through the spirit of prophecy between modern day Assyria and ancient Assyria, okay, and modern day Assyria. Now this is on factsanddetails.com, dealing with the history of the Assyrians and the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Okay, it says the Assyrians established an empire in Mesopotamia about 700 years after the departure of the Babylonians. They ruled Mesopotamia and much of the Near and Middle East from 883 to 612 BC. At its height, the Assyrian Empire was centered in Nineveh, Iraq. You see that? And encompassed what is now Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Egypt, and large parts of Turkey and Iran, which around that Mesopotamia area, around the Euphrates River. It said they created the first international empire where trade, religion, and artistic ideas flowed freely. The Assyrians and their primary god, Ashur, are named after Ashur, a city in northern Iraq that lay at the center of their homeland, because really Ashur, once again, is a biblical identity of the so-called Assyrians. All right, which is why 2 Esdras chapter 2 verse 8 mentions judgment coming to Ashur, which is not speaking about the ancient Assyrians, but rather the modern day Assyrians, which I'm about to further and go into. All right, and jumping down to the point, dealing with the history of their war tactics, and how they were a cruel, bloody nation. It says the Assyrians were known for their fighting skill and brutality. The Old Testament describes Assyrian kings and armies that laid waste to nations and brought calculated frightfulness. The Assyrians are referred to on numerous occasions in the Bible. All right, and then jumping down, it says, jumping down here, it says the Assyrian, let me see. Salakia. Says the Assyrians, now peep this, the Assyrians learned how to make iron weapons and use chariots from the Hittites. All right, did it not say in Daniel 7:7 that the Edomites, okay, that dreadful, terrible beast empire were known for their iron weapons? You see? And was Daniel 7:7 talking about the Assyrians? No, but we understand hermeneutics, and that is a biblical interpretation of the prophecies, man, and how prophecies are often told within multiple timelines, man. You see, Vocab doesn't understand that, okay? Or he's neglecting it anyway, to where he is further neglecting it for the purpose of looking to deceive the elect, but you can't deceive the very elect. And that's where we come in, man. When the true prophecy of Yahweh by Shemir Shai gets a hold of the deception, all right, to further tear down the strongholds and stumbling blocks by way of it, by exposing, the intentions of the deception, man, and how they're looking to deceive the body, okay? So I digress. It says, they established a military state that drew strength and economic clout from conquest. They organized their society around warfare and boasted of their conquest to strike terror into their enemies and prey. You see that? And that's also why America is modern day Assyria. Now let's go back to. Now let's go ahead and prove that. Do some more precepts. Continuing on in Jeremiah 50, I'm gonna jump down to verse 31, and it reads, "Behold, I'm against thee, O thou most proud, said the Lord Yahweh of hosts. For thy days come, the time that I will visit thee. And the most proud shall stumble and fall, and none shall raise him up. And I will kindle fire in the cities, and it shall devour all around about him." So there's not any other nation that's more proud than Esau, Edom. He who is blaspheming the Heavenly Father to his face, which he's going to have to be held accountable for. Prophesied in Ezekiel 35 and 12 to verse 13. See? But that's why his forefather, Cain, Kwayan, meaning weapon in the Hebrew, blasphemed Yahweh to his face. And that's the same spirit the descendants of Cain, all right, through the Edomites, have to this day. Because there's nothing new under the sun. Okay? Whose legacy within the Edomite supremacy has included carnality and witchcraft. Okay, which have been further, substantiated through this lesson and other lessons that Akim have done. Okay. So it says Jeremiah, and that's why the pharmaceutical business is a top $32 billion pharmaceutical business, in which derives from the Greek word pharmakia, which is the Greek word for witchcraft. Okay. You see? So verse 33, thus said Yahweh of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were pressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. And speaking of drugs, okay, that's a further part of how a further tool they use to not let us go by not letting our minds go, keeping our minds cluttered and contaminated with that pharmakia. Okay, going back to the crack epidemic in the 80s and beyond that. You see, what other demographic of people suffered that kind of oppression, affliction other than us, so-called black and indigenous people, man? Like it says in Daniel 9 chapter. Okay, no other greater evil under the sun was to happen except upon the people of Zion, roughly paraphrasing. That's us, because we fit the prophecies, man. Just like the elders have been recently going into, the elder apostles and other Akim have been going into, ensign or the sign, and Deuteronomy 20 and 46 means exactly what it means, man. Okay. Otherwise known as a memorial, remembrance on how the children of Israel could be identified through the spirit of prophecy, to say before, to declare. You see, all right, and who's out there in the highways and hedges where they have been commanded to prophesy and preach the good tidings of the kingdom of heaven to, other than the prophets you see on the highways and hedges, man? The same ones who they demonize as if we're not the prophets of the Lord, like it says in Lamentations, the 2nd chapter. You see that? Because we fit the prophecies of ancient Israelites, because we are the ancient Israelites, man. Okay, continuing on, Jeremiah 50 and 34. Their Redeemer is strong, Yahweh of hosts is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. Verse 35, a sword is upon the Chaldeans, said the Lord Yahweh, and upon the inhabitants of Babylon, and upon her princes, and upon her wise men. You see? Okay, it was further uncovered. Okay, why? The Chaldeans, okay, or the modern day Chaldeans are the dukes of Edom, because the sword is the blessing of the Edomites. Okay, the sword was not the blessing of the Assyrians, man. So there's a reason why Nahum, the 3rd chapter, also correlates with America, Babylon the Great, through hermeneutical interpretation, through biblical prophecy. Okay, and these top scholars understand that. They don't have it all together because they're not the prophets of Israel. Okay, so even they understand it, but Vocab is neglecting it. Okay, try to keep Jake asleep. This is Jeremiah 50. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get this precept, Nahum chapter 3, verse 4, and it reads, "Because the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts, that selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcrafts." You see, and these are the modern day Chaldeans, okay? All right, who were known for indulging in witchcrafts, okay? All right, they're doing it now. I do the countless examples mentioned here, all right, within this lesson, as well as, previous lessons, man. All right. So this is, matter of fact, go ahead and further prove this is talking about the Dukes of Edom, the central bankers. Isaiah 19:1, the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord Yahweh rideth upon a swift cloud, which is the chariot, the fathership of all chariots, and shall come into Egypt. And the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. Okay? So this is clearly talking about Yahushua descending back into this realm as he promised in Acts, the 1st chapter, to destroy these modern-day Egyptian idols, man. Has that happened yet? No. Okay? The reason why I'm bringing this out is because Egypt is synonymous with Assyria in terms of the wicked satanic vibration of those rulerships. Okay? All right? Correlated with Babylon the Great's wicked satanic rulership. Okay? By way of the same gods that were worshipped in ancient Egypt and Babylon worship now, including the gods worshipped within these religious institutions. I broke down, you know what I'm saying, and the lesson I did yesterday about the exposure of the SBC, in their sexual, 700 plus cases of sexual abuse, man. Going into that history, filled to the biblical prophecy, man. All right, of the divination that is normalized, has been normalized in modern day Assyria. That was normalized back then, but then them wizards of Chaldea. Okay, so this is verse 2. It says, "And I will set the Egyptians against Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom." Now, before I go into that, that's why in Zephaniah 2:13, it mentions the correlation between Assyria and the north, which is the north country, the Western Hemisphere, okay, where the bulk of the captives of Jerusalem were taken to, okay, within North, Central, South America, and Canada, okay. And that's why in Jeremiah 16:15, it prophesied how the children of Israel would predominantly be gathered from where they had been scattered within the North Country, and that's North America, man. All right, lining up with Deuteronomy 28:68. Okay, the prophecy of the transatlantic slave trade. So this is Isaiah 19:2, "And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom." Okay. Because Egypt means bondage, right? Within the Greek term Egyptos, okay, meaning bondage, okay. So these modern day Egyptians are these modern day bondmen and bondwomen, man, okay. Mainly these bondmen, okay. They're going to go to war with each other within their armies, which is why these rumors of wars are further intensifying between these nations, man, okay, including EU and NATO nations, further fulfilling this prophecy on turning against the whore of Babylon the Great that was soon. Which of the 10 toes, otherwise known as the beast, in Revelation 17:16, that would eventually contribute to burning the whore, man. Okay, just like prophesied in Jeremiah 50 chapter. How modern day Assyria, likened to Babylon, is going to burn and be left desolate. That didn't happen to ancient Assyria, so that's how we know that America is also likened to modern day Assyria, because America is modern day Assyria as well as modern day Egypt. That will burn just like ancient Sodom and Gomorrah did. You see. So this is Isaiah 19:3. "And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards." And that's these modern day Dukes of Edom. Okay? All right? Pursuant to Isaiah 47:12 and other precepts, man, the rulers and the darkness of this world. All right? It's like Alistair Crowley said, the highest form of witchcraft is sex magic through the sodomy of little boys, and that's why that is so prevalent in the culture of these religious institutions, Hollywood, okay, and politics. I.e., Pizzagate, that Hillary Clinton was further exposed of by way of. You see that? You can't get around it, man. You can attempt to, but you're going to be further confounded. Now, matter of fact, I'm going to get this quick precept in Zechariah, and we'll go back to the article. Zechariah chapter 10, verse 10. It reads, "I will bring them again also out of the land of Egypt, and gather them out of Assyria." See? "And I will bring them into the land of Gilead and Lebanon, and place shall not be found for them." Now let's get a map on Lebanon real quick, because Lebanon is near our homeland, Jerusalem. You see? On the East Coast. Okay? So if we were already on the East Coast, why would it prophesy how we'd be taken back to the East Coast? Because we were brought over here to the Western Hemisphere. You see? Right, the North Country predominantly, in Isaiah 11 chapter and Jeremiah 16 chapter, to name a few precepts on that subject, man. Okay? And that's why in Baruch 5:5 it says we were to be gathered from the west back to the east, starting with the word. Okay? Bringing us back into that Eastern mindset. Okay? And unconforming from this Western mindset of the Western philosophy of the wine of fornication of Babylon the Great, which is America, meaning bitter. So let's get a quick map on that Lebanon to further confirm what this is talking about. Okay, the prophecy of the children of Israel being gathered from predominantly the west and taken back home to the east. Okay, within the land of milk and honey, prophesied in Ezekiel 11-17. So let's look this up real quick. Lebanon. All right, this is Lebanon. Yep, country in the Middle East. See? So let's get a quick map on that. All right, or an image of a map. Okay. And you see, all right, and of course, Shaitan is playing with the algorithm. That's all good. Okay, Lebanon. Let's get a better close-up here. Let me see. Yup, right there, Lebanon. Okay, what do you see below that? Israel, the Holy Land, the motherland, man. Preceding Galatians 4:26. You see? Right there. All right. So that's the area where we're going to be taken back to. Okay, where we have been dispersed from and exiled from, including the Northern Kingdom. Okay. And which leads me back to this article, further confirming that the Northern Kingdom, the so-called indigenous, are indeed the Northern Kingdom of Israel. Okay, so get back to this article here. All right, before I go into that, on factsanddetails.com, let's jump down to let me see here. A Syrian attack on Jerusalem and the lost 12 tribes of Israel. All right. All right, let's get straight down to the point. Just read it for just, I'm going to bring it out real quick. Quick synopsis on history, even though I kind of touched base on it earlier, but bring it out again. It says, to revive the Syrian Empire conquered Israel's northern empire 722 BC after the prophet Hosea predicted that the calf of Samaria shall be broken in pieces. For they have sown the wind and shall reap the whirlwind. The Assyrian king Tiglath-Pileser III sacked Damascus and invaded northern Israel. In 722 BC, northern Israel was conquered by Tiglath-Pileser III's successor, Shalmaneser III. Sargon recorded the city of Samaria was besieged. Okay, which they took 27,000. It says carried away 27,290 of the people that dwelt therein. All right, it says Sennacherib, which is Sargon II's son, which led the charge in around 724 to 721 BC, all right, within the final stages of the invasion of Samaria. So it says, the Assyrian ruler of Nineveh launched an unsuccessful siege of Jerusalem in 701 BC, which ran a time where the southern kingdom got invaded. It says the siege was cut short, according to the Bible, by intervention by angels, and an inscription on a statue found in the doorway of Sennacherib's throne room recounts a story of bribery from the Bible, the first known independent written account corresponding to a story in the Bible. Now, getting to the point, it says the northern kingdom of Israel was occupied by 12 tribes, which were said to have descended from the patriarch Jacob, which is biblical, pursuant to Genesis, the 49th chapter. It goes on to say 10 of these tribes, the tribe of Reuben, Gad, all right, Reuben, Seminole Indians, Gad, so-called natives, Zebulon, so-called Mayan Indians down from Guatemala to Panama, Simeon, so-called Arawak Indians from the tribe, which modernly known as the Dominicans, Dan, which were amalgamated amongst the tribes, Asher, the so-called Inca Indians down in South America, from Colombia to Uruguay, which is the Inca Indians down there, all right, the tribe of Asher in South America, Ephraim, the so-called Taino Indians, aka Puerto Ricans, Manasseh, so-called Taino Indians, okay, from the otherwise known as the Cubans, okay, and Naphtali. You have Naphtali, the so-called Guacho Indians down there, all right, around the Chile area, okay, all right, which is from the tribe of Naphtali, all right, they'll possess the west area down there in South America, around the Chilean area. Then you have Issachar, the so-called Aztec Indians, okay? Mexica, within the tribe Issachar, and it says all these tribes became known as the lost 2 tribes of Israel when they disappeared. You see that? When they disappeared after northern Israel was conquered by the Assyrians. Okay, it says in accord with Assyrian policy of deporting the local population to prevent rebellions, the 200,000 Jews living in the northern kingdom of Israel were exiled. They're really talking about the southern kingdom, even though you can refer to them as Jews, because we're all of the waters of Judah, pursuant to Isaiah 48:1. Okay, but it says after that nothing was heard from them again. The only clues in the Bible were from 2 Kings 17:6. It said the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away to Syria and placed them in Halah and Habor by the river Gazan and the city of the Medes. This put them in northern Mesopotamia. Now that's why here, when you read this book that I brought out in a past lesson, okay, and bring it out real quick. All right. There's this book called Israelites in America before Columbus. And the guy had further mentioned how so-called indigenous people were to dwell within that Mesopotamia area when you read it. Okay? Within this book called Israelites Were in America Before Columbus by so-called Pastor Alan Campbell. Okay? Now, matter of fact, just bring it out real quick. Okay? Bring it out real quick. Okay? Now, this is actually by this author, T.C. Johnson, of the 1913 published book, Did the Phoenicians Discover America? Claiming the American continent was discovered and settled by the Phoenicians and Hebrews who kept in contact with the Middle East for some 300 years. He claimed that North America was a biblical Ophir, which is prophesied in the Book of Kings, okay, visited by the fleets of King Solomon, and he outlined some 26 points of comparison between the civilization of the Eastern Mediterranean homelands of the Phoenicians and Hebrews and the Mayan, Inca, and Aztec civilizations in the New World, you see? All right, the Mayan are the Zebulonites, Inca are the Asherites, and Aztec Mexicans are the Issacharites. So why did he make that observation? Because these top scholars know, man. You see? And that's why this information is hard to discover unless Yahweh Shem Shai so happens to lead you to it, through Akim and so forth. Okay? You see? So that Eastern Mediterranean area where he mentioned the origins, historic origins of those civilizations, the people he mentioned, okay, goes back to biblical prophecy. All right, further sent around that map that I showed, right? Because the Mesopotamian area, okay, it's like in the Mediterranean Sea, it's around the ancient Mesopotamian area, okay, more commonly around northern Iraq and northeastern Syria. Now bring that out again, okay. All right, and I'm going to grab a precept on that. All right, I'm going to bring that back out. This is modern day Mesopotamia, okay, where the ancient Assyrian area was located. You see right there. And what do you see adjacent to that? The Mediterranean Sea. Now, quick precept. Okay, quick precept. 2nd Esdras, chapter 13. 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, start at verse 40. And it reads, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land, which is America. Okay? But they took this counsel amongst themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might keep, and that lines up with Deuteronomy 28 and 49, man. Okay, how the Edomites were to sail over here to this so-called New World from the common side of the world, the East, where everyone was once dwelled at. Okay, coming over here speaking languages we did not understand because we were speaking a broken Hebrew here. Now, let's further confirm that. Okay, let's further confirm that. All right, 1 Thessalonians 5:21 says, "Prove all things." So real quick, this is on get this information out real quick. Dealing with the Newark, Ohio Decalogue stone, okay, found down there in a burial ground or burial mound 10 miles south of Newark, Ohio, okay, found with the image of Masha, our forefather Moses, okay, with a beard and an afro when you observe the image, okay, with the Syrian Hebrew on it. Now, why was there Syrian Hebrew on there? Okay, because those who were enslaved by the Syrians, specifically the northern kingdom, okay, fulfilled the prophecy in 2nd Ezra 13th chapter to sail over to another land to attempt to rehearse the righteous law, statutes, commandments, man. You see, and that's why down there in New Mexico, it's not a coincidence, all right, that ancient Decalogue stone of Hebrew, okay, is on there, the Ten Commandments. You see, and there's several other ancient artifacts that further substantiates this information of secular history, filled with biblical prophecy that the so-called blacks and indigenous peoples are indeed the lost 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, point blank, period. Now here's an image of the Decalogue, and it's like the Ohio Decalogue stone down there in Newark, Ohio. Okay, I discovered around 1860. You see that? Where do you see there? Hebrew, a Syrian Hebrew on there. Okay. You see? So, hey, man, look at here. It's clearly an afro on his head. And he's wearing a garment with a Syrian Hebrew on there. Come on, man. You see? So, back in 2nd Ezra 13 and 43, and they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. For the Most High then shewed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsarith. Okay, in the Hebrew it's a Karatazah, meaning another land. Now, I believe I still have it here within the Ish dictionary. Let me go ahead and get that real quick. If I have it here. Let's just go ahead and further drive the point home. See if I could just bring this out real quick. All right, bear with me one moment about Gashah. All right, let me jump back up. Let me see. Yep, right here. You see, it's on the Ish Encyclopedia. It says, the name of the land, but beyond the great river, far away from the habitation of men, which was either the eastern side of the world, the common side of the world, the east, in which the 10 tribes of Israel would dwell. Okay, from the habitation of man on the east, okay, on the other side of the world, the west. Which is why they call it the New World, because no one had ever dwelt over here before the Northern Kingdom was prophesied to come over here and dwell here. But following the same pathway that King Solomon's army followed in the book of 2 Kings, the 10th chapter, and other precepts. It says from the top, the name of the land beyond the great river, far from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell, observing the laws of Moses until the time of the restoration, according to 2 Ezra, the 13th chapter. You see? Columbus identified America with this land, okay, which is Arsarith, you see, Akar Aratazah, another land. Vocab, so that's a for the cut, man. Try to use back at the first chapter of the ancient Chaldeans to try to imply that that's not also a hermeneutical biblical reference to the modern day Chaldeans. You see, so go back to, that's pretty much the point. All right, on 2nd Ezra. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. All right, back in Nahum chapter, matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and continue. Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 36. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 36. And it reads, a sword is upon the liars, and they shall dote. See, a sword is upon the liars. The forger of all lies in Job 13:4 is Esau Edom. Okay, who spake like a dragon, like it says in Revelation 13:8, I believe it is. Okay, like a serpent, a conniving, subtle serpent. Okay, deceiver, conniver, a manipulator. A deceiver is of the characteristic of a self-proclaimed white man. That's how he got America during the Spanish Inquisition. That's how he's been covering up his wickedness through the narrative of his westernized propaganda media tools, all right, to mask himself on earth of being the devil the Bible speaks of, who came to steal, murder, destroy, pursuant to St. John 10:10. You see? Jeremiah 50:36, the sword is upon the liars, and they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be dismayed. A sword is upon their horses and upon their chariots and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her. And why is that? Why is it speaking about the mingled people that are in the midst of her? Because people have sought out to come to America, okay, by their perception of this place being a land of opportunity, by way of the wine of this place, okay, permitting all manners of perverseness and evil here, okay, including including sexual immorality, okay, whoredom by the women, like case in point, I remember seeing this Ishmaelite woman come here with her head wrapped up. Now all of a sudden, not too long after that, her cleavage all the way out. She's wearing dresses like she getting ready to go to the strip club and whatnot. You see, this is the perverseness that Babylon the Great has promoted. Okay, going back to ancient Babylon, also likened it to Assyria, also likened it to Egypt, the house of bondage. Okay. It says a sword upon their horses, upon their chariots, and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her. All kinds of nations here in America, Babylon the Great. Okay? And they shall become as women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed. Okay? A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up, for it is a land of graven images, and they are mad upon her idols. Therefore the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever. Neither shall it be dwelt in from the generation to generation. You see? So how does this refer to cut to his false interpretation of Habakkuk, the first chapter? Okay? Because right here is a further precept that modern day Assyria is going to be completely made desolate. Okay? That's further outlined in Zechariah 10 and 10. Okay? Within the correlation of the north country, which is America, Babylon the Great, and Assyria. Because modern day Assyria is America, Babylon the Great. See, so this doesn't pertain to ancient Assyria, okay, within his botched up breakdown back in the first chapter, because obviously that area, that Mesopotamian area has not been destroyed. You see, it's still there, okay. So that's how you know this is taught. These are specific precepts that are prophesying the downfall of modern day Assyria, man. All right, because once again, Babylon has various different spiritual aliases, okay. But I digress back to Jeremiah 50:40. It says, as the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighboring cities thereof, said Yahweh, so shall no man abide there. See that? Neither shall any son of man dwell therein. You see? Verse 41. Behold, a people shall come from the north. See? Behold, a people shall come from the north, and a great nation, and many kings shall be raised up from the coast of the earth, because the tabernacle of David is being raised back up in these last days, man. Pursuant to Amos 9:11, that's what's scaring these devils, and that's why they're looking to pervert the gospel that much more through these private interpreted botched breakdowns, like Vocab's vain attempt, all right, to further contend with the prophecy in Deuteronomy 20 and 49, further substantiating that the so-called Negroes, indigenous people, fits that prophecy through the transatlantic slave trade. All right, you see. The effects of the transatlantic slave trade, okay, by being required to seek the ruler's favor and want of all things, within these marketplaces and whatnot, okay, within the ghettos, the barrios, and Indian reservations, okay, pursuant to Deuteronomy 32 and 26 and so forth. See, we are the people of the book, all right, and you people are vexed about it because you're not the people of the book. You see, that's really what it comes down to. That's why Wisdom of Solomon's second chapter says, to envy the devil, death came into the world. You see. Through the wine of fornication of Babylon the Great, all right, you see that these devils have further drank like iniquity, meaning what? They have become the men of iniquity, sin upon sin, okay, wearing it like a garment, living this wicked, living throughout iniquity, making iniquity a lifestyle. That's why their spirit is not upright in them, like it says in Habakkuk 2 and 4. All right, vile and profane is Esau, Edom, and none other more profane than him, ungodly than him, outside of the temple than him. See? So this is back in Jeremiah 50 and 41. Behold, the people shall come from the north, and a great nation, and many kings shall be raised up from the coast of the earth. Quick precept in Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 13. And it reads, and he will stretch out his hand against the north and destroy Assyria. That didn't happen in past times, man. Assyria was not destroyed. That geographical area is still down there within that Mesopotamian area. Okay? All right? Between Iraq and northeastern Syria. Okay? Meaning what? That ancient Mesopotamian area still exists. Zephaniah 2:13, and he will stretch out his hand against the north to destroy Assyria and will make Nineveh a desolation and dry like a wilderness. And that's why Nahum and Jonah were prophesying against Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, the bloody city. Okay? Also likened to America, which is obviously the modern day Assyrian bloody city, man. You see? This is why this place, modern day Nineveh, Syria, is going to be made a desolation, a complete wilderness, man. Prophesied in Isaiah the 24th and 34th chapters and Jeremiah the 49th chapter. Malachi 4:1. How behold, the day shall come when that shall burn like an oven. That's coming to modern day Syria. See? So, I'm going to get this precept, this next precept in Isaiah chapter 11, jumping down to verse 11. And reads, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai shall set his hand against the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria. See? That people are still down there. Scattered all by way of the curse in Deuteronomy 20:64, scattered all across the four corners of the earth. See? And that's the only reason why in St. Luke the 24th chapter, that's the main reason why rather, in St. Luke the 24th chapter, Yahweh commanded us to preach before all nations because he understood the curses, man. Okay? All right? To bring good tidings to the meek, okay, that forgot they were Israelites, including Israelite foreigners, unnatural Gentiles, okay, and to also declare the judgment, declare the judgment upon the heathen. You see? It says Isaiah 11:11, it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai shall set his hand against the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. All right, verse 12, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations. See that? And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, vocab. See? And shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. That's a cut, man. See? Look at this word ensign real quick. Ensign. Standard. Banner. Signal. See? Speaking of banner, get that real quick. Psalm chapter 60, verse 4. Thou hast given a banner to them that fear thee, that it may be displayed because of the truth, Salah. And another word for banner is a flag. Why do these nations wave their banners or their flags? To represent the country of these banners or flags. So our banner, okay, is not that so-called Israeli flag, okay, what they prefer to use to perpetrate the fraud. They're the authentic people of the Lord, but rather the real banner is a word, man. Where are we waving that banner? Let's get that real quick. Isaiah 13:4. Isaiah 13, verse 2. Salaki, lift thee up a banner upon, matter of fact, verse 1. The burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos did see, because Babylon is a burden to be in. Okay? A place of snares, prophesied in Psalm 64 chapter, another precepts, man. It's America. Okay? Ensnared within its wicked corporate system, where there's no petition to pay these so-called British royalty taxes. We gotta pay them taxes or face tax evasion, man. And that's usury, man, in scripture. Wicked as hell. That's another snare. Okay? Our women have been used as snares, man. Pursuing Jeremiah 31 and 22, going back to the curse in Deuteronomy 28 around the 56th verse. See that? Okay, our children have been used as snares against us, man, through child support. You see that? See? This debt-based currency system, which is a world reserve currency, Federal Reserve note, is another snare. See? So there's no rest here. You see? So this place is the Babylon the Great. Okay, America is a burden. That's why America means bitter. See? Isaiah 13:2, lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand that they may go into the gates of the nobles. And that's the nobility of Edom within the marketplaces, man. The chief place of concourse where the true prophets and pastors were commanded to preach. Vocab don't do that consistently. See? None of these so-called pastors and evangelists and theologians do that, man. Because they don't fit the prophecies, man. And they neglect these things because they're carnal. See? Like I said in Romans 8 chapter, a carnal mind is enmity to Yahweh by Shem Shai. You see? But how are y'all niggas the prophets? Because, that sentiment further confirms that we are the prophets. You see? Lamentation 2:15. They will hiss and wag their heads at us and say, is this the glory of Jerusalem? These niggas and indigenous, them? Including the same, indigenous to the Mexicans that hop the border and clean my houses, them? They're the glory of Jerusalem? Hell no. That's really the sentiment of Esau, Edom. But that's of the wine these other nations have partook in and have been indulged in. That's why the so-called African nation Ham call us kata. What do they call us? Some that goes into cotton pickers. Forget the actual way they say it. But these are the bywords and proverbs that only our people fit. You see? Okay? Because blindness in part happened to Jerusalem, pursuing Romans 11 chapter. See? We're the only nation that has no true no true government, no true rulership, okay? No camaraderie within our homes, no true camaraderie within our homes by way of the curses. And pursuing Micah the 2nd chapter, if it wasn't for the long suffering and plenty of grace and mercy out by Shem Shai, we wouldn't even have a heritage. Because he said he could raise up a nation from the stone, so he don't need us, man. You see? And that's why we're so adamant about defending this gospel against these ministers of Satan like Vocab. Okay? Vocab, Calvin Malone. Okay? All right, because, lies are extensions of priorities. So if you have to lie against something, that means you're passionate about something. So if you have to lie by perverting the gospel to imply to the public that we're not the Israelites, you're afraid of fulfilling prophecy, my friend. Point blank period. Okay? Back in Isaiah 11 and 13. All right, verse 12 again. He shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. You see, so the southern and northern kingdom are no longer going to have beef. We're no longer going to be divided. Pursuing Zechariah 11:14 of our brotherhood of the southern and northern kingdom splitting up during the time of King Solomon's heart turning away from Yahweh, Abba Yahweh. See, but by way of the second holy covenant, we're going to be brought back into our Hebrew Israelite heritage, including the 2/3 in the kingdom of heaven. We're going to be gathered back to where we've been exiled and dispersed from. So I'm going to end this off in Ezekiel chapter 11, verse 17, and it reads, Therefore say, thus said the Lord Yahweh, I will even gather you from the people and assemble you out of the countries where ye have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. See, because he's going to take us back there. Okay? All right? By destroying America, Babylon the Great, in this last world's war, the war of the worlds in Revelation 12th chapter. Okay? Destroying the armies of these heathen nations. Okay? And gathering that multitude, that remnant, pursuing the second Ezra 13th chapter. Okay, the precepts, including this one here, they're taking us back home to Jerusalem. So I'm going to end it off there. Praise bless was further edifying, exhorting, comforting, and insightful to the hopeful elect that may have tuned in and may end up tuning in. And give all praises, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Abba Yahweh, Bahashem, Hamashiach, Yahweh, Baruch, Kodash. If you give me the spirit to do this video, with your prayers further, once again, edifying, exhorting to the hopeful elect. Without a bar, the ball, DTA, I'm leading us off with the courage against Babylon, may Yahweh, Bahashem, Hamashiach, Yahweh, Baruch, Kodash, Babakashah, Shalak Rayam, Wa Nashim, Wa Abayim, Wa Haragim, Wa Mashapadim, Al Kal Adiwamim, Wa Matazayim, Wa Amalek, Wa Babal, Wa Kawadi, Wa Bibinawa, Babakisha, 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 Tuwada, Tuwa, Aman. Kwam Yash Allah. And Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Yash Allah, and on to the next one.